And for years, my organizations have had the lowest sales turnover because we care. And I think that's genuine. And that doesn't mean, you know what, people are going to have a bad month. Well, gee, their mom died. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And then they'll run through walls for you.
Yeah. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Culture-neer podcast. I'm your host, Terry Gwaltney, and I'm excited that you just decided to spend a little bit of your valuable time here with us today. I know how valuable it is, and of course, it's our goal every week to try to help you amplify your culture. You know, the culture is only going to be as healthy as the leader. So our goal is always, how can we, help make you stronger as a leader? And in turn, you'll create a culture that your employees refuse to leave and your customers just can't resist. But I would like to ask today, if you could do me a favor, if you could like the show wherever you're consuming this content and share it with just one person, it would help double our reach. And that's really our goal. We want to help and serve as many people as possible. So if you could do that, we would appreciate it. Listen, I'm so excited today to have our guest and my friend John Mann with us today. He is the general sales manager of the Paducah Sun. He's also the general sales manager of WPSD, a local NBC affiliate out of Western Kentucky. Comes with years of management experience and just a gentleman at a heart. And so I'm excited to have you on the show, John. Welcome.
Well, thank you. And it's really a privilege and honor after reading your book, to be sitting here, because I feel like I'm probably the, what doesn't belong here, that would be me. But I appreciate the invitation. And like you say, you've been inspirational to me in the last 5-6 years. So.
Well, I'm excited. Obviously, where you're at now is your professional destination. But I think the goal today will be in the journey that got you to that point. Because I'm sure if you're like me, most of what we've learned has been the hard way, and it's learning, well, I'll never do that again. That was pretty dumb. That was stupid. And unfortunately, when you're in a role of leadership, there's repercussions from our decisions. It doesn't only just obviously affect us. It has a dramatic impact on the people that we're leading. And so I'm excited to get into this conversation today. But let's start for the audience, just to get to know you just a little bit better personally. Share a little bit about your journey on how you even got started into the field of journalism.
Journalism and broadcasting, my dad was in it. So literally it was a cradle language and observation for me. And I mean, literally I would sit there and say, wait, there's that guy. How do you get in that little box? I'm like the monkey with the mirror running around behind. And he involved me as a young person in several stories he was involved in. He took me out of school once in Los Angeles to fly me to some desert location where he was interviewing John F. Kennedy.
Oh, wow.
And I really just want to color my Quick Draw McGraw color book, but my dad says, you'll really appreciate this. There's somewhere is a picture of JFK bouncing me on his knee. And I complained because he was hurting some of my parts. And the minute I said, you're hurting, he goes, oh, and that was the end of that. But there is a picture of that somewhere.
Wow.
So, and throughout my life, and we had off and on relationships. He's been, as a journalist, he's been a true north. And today, for those people, many might not relate, but he might be described as just a little more curmudgeonous than the Lou Grant character in Mary Tyler Moore. Absolutely black and white. There is no gray, and it cost him several jobs. And I think that's what I learned from, because in Chicago, he analyzed all the hamburger, and it was a major CBS station, and they found out that one of the local stores was selling hamburger heavily contaminated with insect skins. So the bottom line is, somebody like me went to him and said, "Hey, Al, baby, you got to kill that story. That customer's too big." And he had a 2-word response, which we won't share here, but I'm sure the audience can guess. And So the general manager called him and said, "Hey, Al, that's this. Nobody's dying. This isn't a story." He said, "Yeah, it's a story." So, well, the news director who's going to be employed here tomorrow won't run it. My dad said, "Well, I'm running it." And the general manager said, "I'm sorry, 5-star general, no star general, kill the story. I won't do that." So he fired him. I read about it 4 days later in the Chicago Tribune in study hall in high school.
Wow.
So
he was a man of principle and character for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And today I don't think he could function in the changes that have happened in the media landscape and fake news and the gray areas. So as a culture, it would be a challenge to him, I think.
Wow. Sounds like he was a true journalist, and it seems like we've got so far from that in most news stories today. So would you say that was the inspiration for you to start your career?
Yes, I wanted to be naturally, in high school, you love sports, so I want to be a sportscaster, and he had a very candid conversation with me, which after hundreds of hours of therapy, I'm not angry about anymore. He said, "Son, you have a face for radio."
Wow.
So yeah, just telling you, your dad telling you you're ugly when you're a sophomore in high school.
Wow, that's a confidence builder.
Yeah, confidence builder. But and the sports thing came and went, but I was interested in news and was pursuing journalism at Bowling Green and managed a radio station, and it was commercial. So that's when talking to advertisers, and I got great satisfaction out of helping people increase their business, make it better.
So you found a sense of purpose in that.
Yeah, and then as I did some research, it's like, well, the journalists all drive crappy, beat-up cars, and the salespeople all have nice cars. So maybe I'll go down that road a bit.
And so where did that journey take you? You mentioned Bowling Green. You're in Western Kentucky now. Where else did your career path take you?
I started in Cincinnati. That was Bowling Green, Ohio.
Oh,
but
Ohio. Okay.
So I started in unusually big market for someone right out of college in Cincinnati. And several years successful there, and then went to Tampa, Florida, and major market, and was successful there after some painful lessons that we all learn, and then Miami, Jacksonville, and so the management road began. And my dad moved around a lot, so I just thought that's what one did. And every 3 years, I get a phone call. "Hey, we've heard about you. You want to come up here and give you a lot more money?" And it's like, okay. So that might be the one thing, is I might have put more time in grade because, roots and community, and to me, so.
One of those things, if you could do over again, you'd maybe change a little bit.
Yeah. Well, my wife said we've moved 12 times. Now, the good news was once my son was in school, it was only twice. When moved him when he was in 6th grade. And then actually that was it, 6th grade. So only once.
What would be your favorite childhood memory? You shared the horror story of how you got scarred. What was the favorite childhood memory? I mean, it'd be hard to top, I think, the JFK story. But.
Well, and that wasn't a favorite. I think my favorite was, we lived a comfortable life, lived in the Hollywood Hills. I went back recently on whatever Google Earth is and looked at the house, that we grew up in. And it's like, 6.2 million. It's like, why didn't Dad keep that?
Wow.
But I remember, it was near the holidays, and somebody knocked on our door and wanted to wash our windows. And, he didn't look like what I would traditionally call a bum, but he didn't look of means. And so my dad said, sure. Then he came to me and said, "Hey, this young fellow's got a couple of kids, including a boy your age. I want you to go in that closet over there and pick out 2 of those gifts that have John tags on them and give them to this man for his child for Christmas." Well, one of them was a huge skateboard that I coveted, and you can't disguise a skateboard. And so I gave him that and gave it the other, and the man wept. So.
How old were you?
4th grade.
How did that shape you going forward?
It made me tear up easily as a recall, but I think I learned then that you only get to keep what you give away.
Ooh, that's powerful. So you mentioned your wife, Jenny, a while ago. How did you guys meet? Where were you at in there?
I'd like to say the cover story is I was vacationing at the Louvre or France, and we met at the Louvre, but the actual story was we met at my favorite watering hole in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I had just quit my job, 6-figure job. I just I couldn't meet ladies. I was frustrated. I turned my back on my faith. And here, this most beautiful memorial walked up to me. I pierced my ear. I had a Jeep. I'm going to Montana to do roofing on churches. And the most beautiful woman in the world came up and said, "Can I stand with you? This guy's bothering me." And I think 4 days later, I moved in with her, and we lived together for 3 years, and then have been married for 34 years this June.
34 years. Wow. I'm guessing it was a turning point in your life.
Yeah, it was. And she yoked herself, her mom, he's a non-believer. I was a believer, but not practicing. And she yoked herself, and nobody's perfect, but boy, she is a good person. And lots of great things happen to people in their lives. I got to marry my great thing. So.
Yeah, I could say the same thing.
Yeah, both of us outkicked our coverage.
yeah, we married up. So would you say, because I always like to ask people, if you had to think back, what's been the 3 most influential people in your life? Would she be one of them?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, obviously my father, but it was an on again, off again relationship over the years. And a sales manager that I wanted to resent when I didn't get the general sales manager's job in Jacksonville. And I thought he was hokey. And he taught me, and I called him years later and said, "I'm sorry, I was mean to you." But, he was like, "John, people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care." And, he said, "You ought to be in Toastmasters." And I'm probably going to alienate all the Toastmasters in the world here, but this was the old me. And so, "What is that?" He says, "Well, a bunch of people, you get together and you get called on, you got to give a speech." I said, "On what?" He goes, "Well, you may not know." I'm like, "So why don't they call bullshit masters then?" And that wounded him, and it was mean and ugly. And I since now know that Toastmasters is valuable, but that was the cockiness of youth. But he was so right in the things he taught to me, and about the customer, treating a customer, and people don't care how much you know. And I used to be really statistically driven, and still can be, but nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah, I think for those maybe that don't understand that, because it comes out from really what you believe and what you're passionate about. And so I think for some, sales is what I can get from somebody, whatever value I can extract that benefits me only. And I think there's a lot of our sales world that operates that way, which I think gives a lot of people in sales a bad rap, a bad reputation. But wouldn't you agree that true sales, what you just said, it's really about what I can do for you? Mm-hmm. I'm going to get rewarded for what I can do for you, but I don't forget that it's the service that I'm providing and how I'm serving you that positions me for that. It just becomes a byproduct of that. If you get the right people with the right motives and the right heart, they're going to be successful, but man, they're going to have a customer for life.
Absolutely. And, I saw a movie a year and a half ago that I loved, and I showed to my sales staff. It's got some F-bombs in it. So, I gave them the PG warning, but the movie Air, which is I'd seen it in the theater, and then it was on Amazon Prime free. It's still there, and it's the story about Michael Jordan and how Nike, this no basketball division shoe, got Michael Jordan to sign, and they were earth shattering because when his mother said, "Okay, we're going to go with you, but we have one other additional thing: you will give Michael a percentage of every Jordan shoe sold in this country or the world." "Oh, we can't do that." She goes, "You will do this." And they did it. And Phil Knight, anyway, the president, CEO of Nike, thought, "Oh, what can it be? We've never sold more than a couple million." First year, it was like 165 million in sales. And it's generated income for Michael Jordan of over 400 million. But more importantly, the money that he's put into charitable foundations to help kids of need.
Still to this day. Yeah. They're still selling that. And he's been retired for, 20 years?
Yeah, and the center of the pitch, when basically Matt Damon's character says, or, stop the slick video, stop. Here, I'm going to talk to you from my heart. And it's every sales rep should ever see that, because you can't go wrong looking somebody in the eye and say, here it is. And I respect you folks, because you are people of integrity. You've had such a great impact on my life, seeing the way your business model is. And we're not the cheapest, but we stand by our work. If we say you have a lifetime guarantee, we honor the lifetime guarantee. And it's like, wow. And, when the tornado wiped out one of our local Kentucky communities, you wanted to be there the next day with the Integrity Cares.
Yeah. One of our guys, it was funny. Just yesterday, we were in a meeting, and I was asking guys. I said, "Tell me what this statement means to you. Buy a roof, change a life," because that's kind of our motto. And he said, yesterday, he said, I was at a store and somebody came up behind me and put their hand on me, and I turned around and suddenly I had my Integrity shirt on. And he said, "You probably don't remember me, do you?" And he said, "No, sir, I don't." He said, "Well, when the tornado happened, you come out in the dark the night before and tarp my roof." And of course, when we initially did that, the first day or two, we just wanted to serve, so we weren't charging people for that. Obviously, that's the business we're in. We eventually did that because that's our bread and butter. But my guy never really seen this guy because he was in the dark.
Right.
We're 2 years on the other side of that or something like that. But my team member was telling how it made him feel, that he was a part of something that was bigger than him because he just served somebody that was in need.
Servant leadership, and that's been the turning point in my career, was realizing you can do both. I was raised in a pretty rough manner, and I was demanding, and I don't care about your personal stuff. Leave it at home. This is what we got to do. And now it's COVID has dramatically changed some sales philosophies or operations in my organization, and for the better. I went to a industry meeting for small television groups a couple of years ago, and I so wanted to hug this man and slap him. It was me 30 years ago, and he was talking to me. He's in Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and if I just get the right sales team. I said, "Well, what do you do?" And he's like, "Well," and he went through, they have to report every minute of every day. We have the funnel, and we've got this software. And I said, "So what's your sales turnover?" "About 90% a year." So maybe you might want to change your methodology. He says, "Well, what software do you use to track?" I said, "We had some, we threw it out." I don't care if I see them during the day. We know what they're doing. And I've got a couple of moms, and they have baseball. Great. And those same moms are online at 4 a.m. So the more I've let go, the more I've gotten back.
Oh.
And that sounds, there's some people, I'm sure, really big corporate leaders are flipping out right now, but, hey, it works. And for years, my organizations have had the lowest sales turnover because we care. And I think that's genuine. And that doesn't mean, people are going to have a bad month. Well, gee, their mom died. So people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And then they'll run through walls for you.
Yeah.
And I had an early boss who told me, he says, "You've got to get your people to run through walls for you." And that's backwards. They got to know you'll do it for them. And when they do,
they will.
Oh man, they will.
Yeah. I think that embodies what some I don't think have ever learned, which is the customer experience is never going to be greater than employee experience.
Well said.
And so if you're not,
you should write a book.
if that team doesn't feel valued, if they don't feel like you're willing to run through the wall for them, and this is not about what you say, it's about how they feel. And you can't argue someone's feelings. And so those emotions come out of a credibility that are based on repetition of actions that prove out what you're actually saying. But it's no mystery when you go into some of these places and you receive poor service and people can't get off their phone long enough to treat you like you're a customer. The reality is they're treated like a number. It's not a career for them. It's a job, and it's temporary at best. And I'm going to give your customer what you're giving me, which is barely the time of day. And man, if you can change the culture, you can get a competitive advantage in a business. So I'd like to talk just a little bit about what you were saying, because I feel like you said you've made this almost 360 change, and I would describe that as you're taking more of a holistic approach.
Yes.
You're no longer separating what's going on with the person at home than the professional that you hired at work. You're not manipulative, but you're also aware that if mom does die at home, I shouldn't have the same expectation that I'm going to have the engaged, focused employee, and I can't be catalyst to what's really going on in their life. Mm-hmm. If I really value them as a person, and I still want them to run through the wall for me. So how long did it take you to learn that?
I'm embarrassed to answer.
Well,
40 years.
And what happened that triggered that? Because it'd be very easy for people to say, I've done it this way my whole life. I've had success. I'm not changing. What was the catalyst for that change?
I think, the birth of my son probably started it, but when he was high school, and I had to go to his first parent-teacher conference, and I think I wrote that in the book, but I expect, 30 minutes and out, and they're going to tell me how brilliant my kid is at the private school, and yay, and they're like, yeah, we're a little disappointed in Wyatt's sense of wonder. I'm like, oh, well, what's that sense of wonder, I wonder? And as I learned their educational style, it's like, this might be effective with my organization. And I've since put that in every job description for my team, is encourage, nurture an active and ongoing sense of wonder. And then the second part was leadership. Oops, I just banged the table. Second part was Leadership South Bend shared a video, and I mean, my jaw would hit the table. And it's like, I'm buying that, stealing that, whatever it takes. And it was DeWitt Jones, celebrate what's right in the world. And it just, I was competitive, and we're going to be first. And, yes, I'm going to shove some people out of the way. It's like, you can be nice and kind and still finish first. And you can't do it. You've got to have the team do it for you and get you there. So like I say, I'm ashamed to be sitting at this table because you've had so many good, smart people who have done this for 40 years. And all I'm doing is I'm 40 years into the journey, and I still have so much farther to go.
Well, we all do, but I think that's inspiration. And man, that takes a lot of courage to change what you've done for so long. So easy to get in a rut. I was just listening to something earlier, and it was talking about the agility of leadership that, if you're not, our culture is changing so fast, and the business world is changing so fast. If you don't have agility to change your leadership, what you did to get you where you're at is not going to be what's going to keep you.
Exactly. It's 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I read a book by a radio consultant who said it's not the big that eat the small, it's the fast that eat the slow.
Oh.
And I wanted my organizations to be quick to change, quick to pivot, quick to say, hey, that's a good idea. Let's go down there. No, that's a terrible idea. Put it in reverse. Everybody back. That's okay. And I think as part of the culture, you got to have a culture where failure is okay.
Yeah.
And so many companies, oh no, it's point the finger, blame, like, how did this happen? Well, Harry didn't do, I want fair. I mean, I don't say, hey, please, let's go out and make multi-million-dollar mistakes. But you know what? If you don't dare, you don't do. And so let's think it through. And and I have made them all. I am champion of bad decisions, bad calls, and now I'm surrounded by people who also make some bad ones once in a while, but together we're doing pretty good.
Yeah. Sounds like you shifted from me to we.
Yes. And I've never heard it phrased like that, but yeah.
And, failure is not final. I mean, if you look at it the right way, failure is just an ongoing learning experience. And so don't we want our teams to participate in continued education? Yeah. Don't we want them to, get better? Mm-hmm. Talk to us about, if you had to give your definition, the John Mann definition of culture, what would that be?
That's a great question. It's a tough question. I probably should have read the questions in advance so I could have a really smart,
well, I'm going to get an authentic answer.
Wisdom answer. I think culture is some definition of what your organization does or stands for, and that changes. But I'll give you some good examples. McDonald's has a culture that was going to be family or family or family. So you wouldn't see them sponsoring the Hooters mobile in NASCAR. And that's probably a vapid example. And let me back up. When I first got to my current company, after about a year, I told my wife, I said, man, this company does not have a sales culture. She said, wasn't that kind of your job? I said, yeah, you're right. So I didn't ask anybody's permission. I started doing, I think I shared some of those things with you, but I started just sending out a thought of the day. And it could be everything from, I want to be thought-provoking, just stimulate, just go. And it was very successful. People would feedback saying, wow, this meant so much to me. I shared this with a customer. So I think culture is employees who get it don't have to ask. And by nature, it becomes easy to attract. And we had a sales opening, which we don't have often, and very successful sales rep from another media organization who was making more money said, I want to come work for you guys. And little did I know that, wow, one of our reps who, said, hey, you got to work for this guy. And that was flattering to me. And she's knocking it out of the park, just, and we do gratitude meetings.
Tell us about that.
Just tell us what you're grateful for. And I personally tell everyone something is sincere. I'll get cloudy and misty here right now. Tell them you love them. Tell them why. You can't go wrong.
No.
Yes, I am the sappy. I'm the Dick Vermeil, for those of you who know him. He, probably a good model. He was the hard-nosed coach, and he took 10 years off coaching after his burned out to the Philadelphia Eagles, came back to take over the greatest football team in the history of the world, the Los Angeles St. Louis Rams, and bombed his first year. Was doing 2 and 3 days. Players complained, and so he wasn't contemporary. So he pivoted and lightened up, and they won the Super Bowl. And their star quarterback got hurt in a preseason game, and he said, we will compete with Kurt Warner and another special person. So, recently, well, it's actually been 3 years now, we had an opening, and it was a specialty type sales, very hard to fill. And I came up to our Southern Illinois office, and here comes the candidate, and it's like, he doesn't even look like he shaves yet. And he didn't check all the boxes. But when I talked to him, the best listener, and he asked, after he read the job description, I said, you have any questions? Yes. Tell me what success looks like in this job. And I did. 3 years later, he's reporting directly to our CEO and heading up the entire division in the company in 121 properties.
How old is he now?
24.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm going to go on a rant and probably a diversion, so pull me back here. Where I see danger for any companies is that those who want to rely on HR directors or artificial intelligence or software to help them select employees. When you take us out of it, he didn't check all the boxes, but he made a connection. And I don't know what his IQ is. I'm going to guess it's very high. But within months, he was spectacularly successful. And I guarantee you, companies we've done business before said, oh, well, he doesn't have his degree yet. We want a college degree. And he doesn't have the exact experience. He never would have gotten to the interview stage. So all of those who are letting HR give you the finalist list, you might want to Kaizen that process and see who's not getting to you.
Wasn't it Steve Jobs that wasn't cut out for college?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. And Jobs is the best example of Kaizen, which means constant good, constant improvement. And boy, is that scary. You mean we got to change something, but we're successful. What happens if we screw it up? Then you unscrew it up. But Jobs, hey, I've got this. I already revolutionized the world and music distribution with this little iPod Nano thing. Well, we're going to make it better. We're going to take it apart and make it better. It's like, what? No, but I love it. Well, we're going to put a phone with it and a computer, and it's going to fit in your pocket.
Yeah.
But you got to have the internal strength to take it apart and realize that maybe it's not perfect.
Yeah. Sometimes your past success can be the enemy of future success for sure.
Absolutely. And that's why it takes great character and courage to say, wow, we're not perfect. And I think that goes to culture, that everybody in our organization, I don't care what level, tell us what we can do better from your perspective. And sometimes the truth hurts.
Yeah.
But I guess, and this is what my son taught me, is if you want truth from people, if you want honesty, you have to make that the least painful option.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Son, did you do this? I promise I won't punish you. Yes, I did. All right, you're grounded. Well, he's going to roll the dice from here on.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a bad choice, son. Thank you for being honest. What will we do differently going forward? I don't think I answered your question, but it was a good dodge.
It was very good. Well, so tell the audience what you think, because you've experienced this now for 4 decades. How does culture give you a competitive advantage? Because I think because people don't fully understand when you ask them, what's the definition of culture? They think about entertainment at work that's distracting. That's what I think a lot of people think about. Or they think about what you're talking about is going to take away from productivity, and it's going to be more of a cost, which is going to affect my bottom line.
Well, it will affect your bottom line, but in the good way.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm too...
So talk about that. How does it give you a competitive advantage? Because in the beginning, it looks like it's a cost when really it's an investment.
Yeah. We celebrate what's right in my organization. And to that end is some people like, oh, that's Pollyannish, when maybe you just need to celebrate more sales success. They're not mutually exclusive. So once a quarter, and when it's deserved, which is usually more frequently, but minimum once a quarter, we do a sales day out. And we celebrate the successes. We discuss our challenges. Sometimes successes, I finally got to sit down with a customer, and it's taken me 3 years to get the appointment. That's a success. I got an at-bat.
Yeah.
So let's celebrate the small steps, the big closes. Let's celebrate everything. And the culture of more experienced reps helping the less experienced, because they're not threatened by it. My goal is I want to have the highest paid, happiest sellers in the world. And, the only rules are be nice, be fair, be kind, and be honest.
Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it?
Yeah. It took me the longest. And again, my son taught me, just be kind. Just be kind. Because that has nothing to do with it. I want to be the tough businessman. And I understand the reasons for that. And I won't go into it because you only have a limited amount of time. It would take days. And thousands of dollars of therapy would erupt from my mouth. But just be kind, I think, And going back to your culture question, who are we? If you say U.S. Marines, you know what their culture is. You got that answer. But most people think it's blind obedience. And no, the Marines or several of our armed services adapt, improvise.
Yeah.
We're not going to run up the machine gun hill and have thousands of men mowed down after the first, hey, this tactic's not working. Let's adapt, let's improvise.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the relationship is between company culture and customer satisfaction? Talk to us a little bit about that.
I think when you're good at the one, it makes you spectacularly successful at the other.
If you reverse that, if you sucked at the one,
you're going to suck at the other. Yeah. So it's it's a symbiotic relationship, and you'll have individuals who will star, but you won't have an organization. I look at your organization. I know what integrity is. I know the people. I know the people you want to recruit, and you don't lower your standards. You'll go without before let's give this person a shot. And that sounds almost contradictory. I do believe in second chances and things, but we're not going to lower our cultural standards.
Yeah. Yeah, believing in people and giving people second chances is different than just lowering the standards. So anybody could join.
Fill the job, fill the job, fill the job,
Yeah, I try to tell people it's because I've done it wrong so many times. It's so much easier to go a year and be short staffed than it is to fill the position for 6 months and then clean up the mess for the next 2 years.
I read a book, and the line in it was, I don't remember the book, but it was that while not an easy process for all the women out there who've gone through childbirth, birth is easier than resurrection because only one person's ever been resurrected. So get it right at the start. And I have a great failure lesson here from reading a book. I won't say the name of it, but, trying to be a better manager, a better hiring person, I decided I'm going to start doing interviews, the first 1 or 2 interviews blind, because we have visual prejudices. And that's what this book was all about. So, okay. So we're looking for, a very specific type position. And this one candidate kept just knocking out of the park. We were on all of our checklists and scorecards. So finally I brought him in ostensibly to make him the offer. And he kind of looked like Herman Munster. And I don't want to shame anybody appearance-wise, but he gave people quite a start. But I'm determined I'm not going to let this really scary-looking person change my mind. So I hired him, and I went to introduce him to the general manager a week later, and literally Lee opened his office door and went, "Gah!" And you know what? He was scary. And he was scary to our customers. And I got people saying, "Please never send him back. My cat died. My children ran away." That was a great, oh my gosh. And he didn't perform, probably. But so I'm sure there's mass contradictions there. But now we want to look beyond appearance, but you can't ignore it.
Right.
And, his passion wasn't in selling. His passion was marching bands, and he got into that field and has been very successful.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. And that's hard, I think, for an employer. Sometimes by not promoting someone on your team to a customer, you're actually holding them up from fulfilling their true potential. And so it's not a win for you to keep people that aren't a good fit, and it's definitely not a win for them. So, but I think sometimes we don't have those conversations because of how it makes us feel. It's too uncomfortable for us and awkward. So sometimes we prolong the thing that we need to do, and that's really what true leadership is. Just step up and be the leader.
Yeah.
What advice did you have for the next generation of leaders if you were going to talk to them about building and nurturing culture? Because those are really two different things.
I wish I had a great answer to that. I think it's listen, listen, listen. Don't be afraid to take chances. Be quick to apologize. I was raised like, real leaders don't make apologies. No, you're the leader. My dad has a sign on his desk. I may not always be right, but I'm always boss.
Wow. That's telling, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
I understand a little bit of the therapy.
There you go. So, just be kind. Take some of your experiences, recognize your weaknesses. And again, they're not mutually exclusive unless the corporate handbook says thou shalt not. And even then, take some risks there. And hey, this young man that I hired, here's the limits of the offer. And so I made him the offer. And after I said, here's what the job is. And after he came back, my boss said, no, he doesn't have a college degree yet. No, we're not offering that. Knock that down 8,000. I'm like, can't do that. Well, you need to do that because I'm not doing this. So he was very disappointed, but I said, don't worry. That's just salary. I'm going to structure it commission-wise. You're going to make that 8,000 if you perform. And he did, and we kept him. But using that hard-nosed approach from my boss, we would have lost him. So I don't think I answered your question again. But.
Well, I think that's probably, though, a different approach in decisions you would have made had it been 20 years earlier.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's, again, because the culture has shifted. Used to be, if we had an opening, we'd have 50 candidates for every position. Not so much now. And, and relationships matter. And if you just churn and burn them, what does that say about your company?
Yeah. Not what you wanted to say.
No. And you can't keep them forever. But if they're going to leave, hopefully it's because, wow, I just got picked off. Disney just hired me. Well, they've got a certain culture when you read about it. And actually, we just hired somebody who worked at Disney for a year.
Mm. Well, I think when we talk to people on this show, I don't know that they would say that their life is busy, although it is, but I think a better way to term it is their life is really full. And because sometimes I think we wear the busy badge, and we think that's a sign of importance and significance when sometimes it's just a lack of time management and an insecurity, to be honest. But what are you doing at this stage in your life to simplify it and focus a little bit more on your vision and your goals for the future?
I think I'm better at communicating with the sub-managers, the department heads, and they absolutely know what we expect. And if there's a question or a crisis, hey, I know we'll clear the calendar. This is the most important thing I'm doing. So just having priorities. And when your priorities are your people and it's genuine and you're meeting their needs, the rest takes care of itself.
Yeah, that's for sure. What's it mean to be a culture-neer? That word it's kind of taking culture and pioneer and meshing those together.
It's new to me, and I've read your book 5 times, and you said sum it up in 5 words. Something I really want to be good at someday would be my summation. But I think it's an ongoing process that, this is our culture. Well, it is now. What can it be? How can we take it apart and make it better? And again, that takes great strength.
How do you want to be remembered when your life's over here on the earth?
I'd like to be remembered as a compassionate person who tried. And I think, people from my past might say, good, that jerk's dead. But I think people in the last 10 years, 15 years would say that. I asked recently a manager that question. I said, how would you describe me as a boss? And they said, compassionate and caring. Wow. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Last week I was in Atlanta, and kind of one of my mentors he was speaking at a culture conference, and it was hosted at the Chick-fil-A Support Center. And so if you want to study culture, that's always been one of the places we've looked for inspiration. Well, this gentleman had spent 40 years of his life working there. He retired from there 6 years ago, and he was, I don't know, I think he was, when he retired, was in charge of all their advertising. But I watched him tear up. Now, he's removed from this company 6 years.
I like him already.
Teaching on culture, yes. And I said, I so appreciate it because I've heard you speak twice. We were in New Mexico together last year, and the same thing. There's an authenticity to what he's saying because he feels it so deeply. And I said, for you to be removed from this 6 years, and the person that you looked at as a mentor has been dead for a decade, and we're standing here and you still feel that way. He said, it's because this place changed my life. It impacted how I was a husband. It impacted my mission in life, and it impacted my finances or my money in a dramatic way, the big 3 M's. And he's, and I sat and I listened to that, and I told him, I said, wow, I said that's what I hope my team could say about me someday. Yeah. I worked there, and that place changed my life. Wasn't about how many sales you had, it wasn't how new customers you brought in. I was better because I worked there and was around those people. And so I totally hear what you're saying. Flip the script for just a minute. If you could ask me one question, what would it be?
What are in your darkest minutes where, okay, we're not hitting goals and, there's financial pressures? How do you come out of that?
That's a good question. I think probably I'm an optimistic person by nature anyway, so I'm always going to see the glass half full. So I think once I run through the list of these are the challenges and they're very real. So I'm still a realist, but here's the possibilities. I make sure that I dwell on the possibilities. Yeah. I think for me, if I spend too much time trying to dwell on, how do we get here and, what if we don't come out of this, that's just not an option. And so For me, it's full focus on, okay, there is a lesson to be learned on how we got here, but we're not going to stay here. I think I approach it a lot of times just like failure. Failure to me is not getting knocked down. Failure is the refusal to get back up.
Yeah.
So it's always, the focus for me is always on how do we get back up?
There you go.
And I remember, 16 years journey, I think, with the organization, that I'm leading now. And I remember making radical changes about 4 or 5 years in, and we had success, but I felt like our business model needed to change for where we needed to be in the future. And you don't make those kind of decisions, and they have they don't have the kind of impact that you want to see overnight. They have impact. It's just not necessarily always the kind of impact you want to see. And I equated that, with our team when we were on the other side of it. So this was like making a decision to turn the Titanic. And you were hoping you weren't going to be the Titanic. And so we went 2 or 3 years where, we had negative growth. But I felt like it was lining up where we needed to be strategically. And that takes courage when you do that. And you really do have to not look at the circumstances, but you have to keep going back to the vision. And I know if I stay true to the core values of what we're trying to do in the mission that's at hand, and I will do it consistently, it's going to produce the result, that I want. So,
and that's where I'm interested when I see big company, Fortune 500s, or, where you're good for 13 weeks. You've got to make this number. And sometimes the bad decisions that result out of that kind of pressure of misreporting sales or some of the things we read about in the headlines.
Yeah. 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 I was in a meeting yesterday. We were having that conversation, the difference between publicly traded and privately. Mm-hmm. I said, it's almost like you're dealing with monopoly money sometimes when you're seeing some of these publicly traded companies. And I named a particular franchise, that you go by and there's rarely more than one car in their driveway, yet their stores are still open and their customer service is so horrible. And the people there, it's nothing more than a job, and it's one they hate and they're trying to get out of. And so there's no real great customer experience. And I said, we don't have the luxury of that in a private held company. We're one customer away from being, really out of business. And so, we have to constantly earn, the right to be able to serve our customers again. And I think it makes us better. Mm-hmm. We're close enough to the report card that it really matters. It's not a 13-week.
Well, especially in today's instant information world and I recently researching going to Galveston for a week with my wife to visit our son and his girlfriend and their dog. And I think, I kept looking, I found the perfect high-rise condos looking over the Gulf. And I skipped by the 10-star reviews. I want to see the 2 out of like 200 bad ones. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just human nature. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't think those are real compared to this. But now AI can give your company bad reviews, and you got to spend time chasing it down and responding. And, we could talk for hours on that. But, we hire people who, when they come in, they've done their homework. They can tell us a little bit, not like, here I am, hire me.
Yeah.
Why would you want to be? What do you like about this company? And if they can't answer that, then we're going to move on.
Yeah. It's good. Our 4 favorite questions. We just do this kind of for fun here as we close the show out. So what's the favorite part of your morning routine?
First, waking up, being grateful that I'm awake. That first sip of coffee, either at my house or I have a wicked weakness for Dunkin' Donuts coffee.
Fair.
And they love me there, and no, I'm on a first name basis. But I think to start it at home, just go through my routine, which now is some meditation, some prayer, and just slowing it down before it speeds up, and reminding myself, just be kind today. Stay true to thyself.
What's your favorite way to unwind at the end of the day?
Used to be with a couple of double bourbons, but my AFib's taking care of that. And I'd like to do a commercial. Water tastes really good, even without bourbon or scotch in it. It's very refreshing.
That would sell.
I think I like to watch comedy programs, on YouTube or, just comedy. I think if you can laugh and have a good sense of humor, it makes you a better culture-neer.
All-time favorite book stands out to you?
Oh, boy. From Good to Great.
Yeah, Jim Collins.
An
It's hard to beat.
oldie but a goodie.
Yeah. Yeah. Favorite magical moment you'll never forget?
The birth of my son. That head crowning, me accidentally drowning my wife, putting the ice chips in because I'm not paying attention. They're like, she can't breathe, Mr. Mann. But seeing this life, and this is my opportunity to break the emotional retardation in my family.
Generational opportunity.
Yeah. And I still screwed it up, but I'm not maybe as bad. I'm trying. But yeah, seeing that little life, and it's like, wow, in the flash of a moment, it went from me to us.
Yeah, that's magical. 2 biggest pet peeves?
Tardiness. It probably makes me a terrible person. Tardiness for no good reason.
Oh, I'm with you.
coming to a, I guess when we're in discussions, fire hosing ideas, and for a long time I had a meeting where we had squirt guns, and if anybody was like, "Oh, that won't work," you squirted water at them, because we're here to, everyone's got a seat at this table and a voice. So, but I changed that now to be tardiness and bullies. Just can't tolerate bullies.
If you won $10 million tomorrow, how would you spend it?
Start a foundation, and I would try to. Food insecurity is huge in our country. We don't want to turn a blind eye to it, but it is. So I can't work in the country, but I could sure probably in Paducah make a dent.
We should talk about that sometime.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Man, I've enjoyed our time together today.
Likewise, thank you. I've learned more I'm taking more than I'm giving, so thank you.
I don't know about that. I appreciate you taking the time today. I think I think our audience could take a lot of courage from someone with as much experience and success and decide, you know what, there's still a better version of me.
Yeah.
And have the strength and the fortitude to make those changes. And that'll be your legacy.
Well, one would hope, but again, you've been inspirational to that. It's like, wow, here's this guy, and I've stopped swearing. I'm not drinking. Look at all the things Terry's done. How can we do that? So your business has been inspirational, and you are a favored customer, but you're beyond that. You're, to me, a person I listen to and respect, and I would run through a wall for you.
I believe that, and you've proven that, and I appreciate that. Well, we're going to end it right there. It's a great note to end on. Guys, just remember, your culture is never going to be healthier than you are. So invest the time. Your team is worth it, and you're going to reap the benefits of it. We'll see you next time on the Culture-neer Podcast. Terry Gwaltney from the Culture-neer Podcast. Listen, I want to say thank you for listening to the podcast today. Also want to encourage you to help us get the message out to more people. If you could like, share, and review this content on wherever you consume it, if you go into YouTube or LinkedIn or just whatever your social media channels are, and you could even share it, that would be a big help to us here at the Culture-neer Podcast. Also, if you'd like some more information, you can go to www.terrygwaltney.com, where we have updates. We also have more resources. We share articles there. And you also can find our new book there called The Culture-neer. Again, we want to thank you again for taking time just to listen to the podcast or view it on YouTube. It's our goal to spend 20 or 30 minutes each time we're together to help grow your culture to a point where your employees refuse to leave and your customers can't resist. This is Terry. We'll talk to you soon.